This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, the last class we've discussed about some form controls. Now we'll have a look at some more controls. Okay, what are all the form controls we have discussed till now? Tell me. What other form controls we have discussed about text box, right? Yes or no? Text input controls, right? Then email, date control. So now we look at some more controls, check boxes, radio button, right? Selection list. Date time control. So in the date time control, we saw how to accept date input. Okay, now using the same date picker, you can accept time, right? You can accept, let's say, a week, a month, and all these types of input. Let us look at the such examples. So in the last class, we have discussed about a simple, let's say, date picker, where when you say input is equal to date, it automatically displays a calendar with a current date selected, right? Then you will be able to select any date. You will be able to move between the previous months, right? And let's say the year you can select, right? You have all these things. So it lets you choose a date, a single date. Now let us see. Okay, suppose along with the date, I also want the time. That is, I want to select both the date and time together. So what you can do is, you can in the input type, instead of giving just date, you can say date time local, right? So along with the date, you will also be able to input the time. So here you have now, when I click on the picker, okay, I'll be able to choose a date, and then I can also, okay, select the time, right? So 2107. So you can also go and input it directly if you want, or you can select it from the picker, right? So, okay, so you can choose both the date and the time together with this picker. Clear? Right on. So input type, you have to specify date, time, local. And you can read the data using this value, and you can store it in a text box. Okay, write down. I'll make the text box read only. Write down. Have you people tried the form control programs? Over? Right, we'll move to the next control, and then month. So when I want to let the user choose a month from the date. Okay, so instead of, let's say, date or date time, you need to give the input type as month. Then you will be able to select any month. Okay, now I say May. Okay, year and the month. So you will be able to change the year by moving the scroll bar. Okay, now I choose 2015 November. Right? So the let's say the month will be given in the form of in the numeric form itself, year hyphen month. So here in the picker you will be able to read it as in a text. But when you copy it, it will return it in the numeric format. Clear? Write down. So in one form itself, you can have a, let's say, a date input, month input, and then the time input for different controls. Over. Let's say when I want to accept only the time, I don't want, let's say, month and date and other things. You can give the input type as time. So it will display a clock here. When you click on the clock, you will be able to select the time. Right? So the current time will be displayed by default. Either you can choose the time from the clock, or you can also go and enter the values directly. Now here I say 2045. Right? Suppose, let's say, when there is an event, you want to display the time. Okay, you make use of this control. Input type is equal to time. So either, let's say, you can select the accept the date and time together using date time local, or separately you can accept the date and time with a date picker control, and input type is equal to time. Over. Then you can accept a week. When I say week, okay, let's say it's from January to December. Totally, you'll be having 52 weeks or something. You can select a week. The week number will be returned with a picker. So when you say input type is equal to week, okay, here you will get a calendar. You will be able to change, let's say, any of the month. Yes. Can you be a little louder?
स्क्रीन नहीं खुल रही है, मतलब मेरा सेशन चल रहा है बट मेरी स्क्रीन नहीं खुल रही है। साइन टीचर से करना होता है जो करता है।
So week number 24th week. Okay, you'll when you click, you will be able to select the entire days in a week. Can you?
चलो छोड़ो।
Right.
मैम से पूछती हूँ।
Right up. Okay. Next, let us look at some special controls. We've already looked at the color input, right? Then you can select something called as a range, where you will be having a slider, and from this you can set the minimum and maximum value for the slider. By moving the slider, you will be able to manipulate it. Okay, the value you can copy, right? And let's say this is a text box where I am copying the value. So the attributes you have for this are, let's say you can have type is equal to range, and then name the value. So you can let's say select the value between 0 and 50. You can specify it with the minimum and maximum, min and max attributes. Okay. So I can say min is equal to 0, max is equal to 50. Okay, minimum value will be 0, and I can set it to any value I like. If you want from 1 to 100, you can give 1 to 100. So you'll get a slider range. By moving the slider, you can increment or decrement the values. Right now, so it lets you choose a range of from a given range. Lets you choose a value. That is why it is called as a range. Right. Over.
Vedita di Rory di.
Then you have the search field. See, when you go to Google, okay, here you see the search box, right? You can add a text, and once, let's say, for example, I type some text. Now I say, for example, I type cricket. Right? Google will search and list out, let's say, everything about cricket, all the related web pages. Similarly, now, for example, if you want to let the user select a particular search term in your website, this can be used. Type is equal to search. Now, in the client side, there is nothing to search. For example, let's say you can say, let the user select type an item, and then you can check in the database whether it is available. For example, the user can type green color t-shirt. You can go in the server database, you can check and display the result. So when you say input type is equal to search, it lets you enter a keyword, but all the search operations have to be done on the server side, not on the client side, because in the client machine only the web page will be there. So if you want to conduct any meaningful search, you need to write a server side code to process the data. Right.
मैं तो क्यों माता डाली है 16 ज्यादा तो ज्यादा है मैं 13 तक किया होगा 1 2 3 4 5
So when you click the submit button, the keyword you have entered, and then let's say the name you have given will be submitted to the web server. Then you can write a PHP code to process the information. Okay, we'll go to the next input control, that is URL. So what do you mean by a URL? URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. So the URL let's say, uniquely identifies a resource in the server side. It may be an image, it may be a web page, it may be an audio clip or a video. So when I say, let's say, internet website, you can go to YouTube, you can look at a lot of the videos. So you can search for, let's say, a particular video. So the content can be, when I say uniform resource locator, the resource can mean any of the resources like a web page, an image, or a video, or an audio clip. Now, when you host your website, when you develop and host your website, in your website you will be having not only the text content. We have already seen how to add images into the website, how to add videos and audio control, right? The uniform resource locator has a unique ID for every resource in a website. Okay, now when I say a website, you know, it's a collection of web pages. So in my website I can have 100 or even 1,000 web pages. Now when I want to look at a particular web page, so what do? You click on a hyperlink. So all the 1,000 pages you have in a website, they are uniquely identified by the uniform resource locator. Now when you want to search, let's say, in Google, so what do? You just type google.in. Okay, so this is let's say this URL. When you copy and paste it in your text editor, so what do you get? You get HTTPS. Okay, www.google.co.in. So HTTPS. So this entire string represents the URL of the Google home page. So HTTPS is the protocol that is used to fetch the resource. This is the domain. Okay, fine. This is the entire domain name. Now, for example, when I go to a news website, now I go to rediff.com. I click on this cricket link. Okay, now here I'll select a particular news item, right? So when you copy and paste the URL, right? Rediff.com cricket. So this is the URL that identifies the cricket section in your rediff.com. So likewise, the URL uniquely identifies every resource on a website. So when I say input type is equal to URL, it lets you enter a URL, right? So you can enter any domain name, okay, and then you can submit, right? Okay. Then file. Input type is equal to file. Now suppose, let's say in some of the websites you have seen, let's say when you go to the job sites, okay, they let you upload your resume on the website, right? So for that, this control is used. Input type is equal to file. So there are two variations here. Like either you can let the user select a single file, or you can allow the user to select multiple files. Okay, fine. So when you click on this, it will show you the windows, let's say this dialog box. You will be able to select any file. So it may be a PDF file, it may be a Microsoft Word file, Excel, it can be anything. Now, for example, when I click on a particular file, so I'll be able to read the file that has been selected along with the full path. Right? Okay, then once you click on the submit button, the file you have selected will be uploaded to the web server. So when you go to your job site, so when you let's say select your resume, when you click on the submit button, so the Microsoft Word and file containing your resume will be stored in the uploaded to the web server. So when they'll go through it, and once they're interested, they'll get in touch with you. Now, when you want to select multiple, normally when you say input type is equal to file, you will be able to select only a single file. When you want to allow multiple selection, you need to specify, okay, let's say my files dot value input type id is equal to name is equal to multiple, okay, file, right. You have to give this multiple attribute. Then it will allow you to select multiple files. So when I say multiple files, let's say now what I'll do is I'll select 4 files. Right? So now here you see it tells you 4 files. Clear? So normally for uploading, they'll allow only 1 file, not multiple files. Right. For assignments, already I think I've given 2 assignments. You just complete those 2.
Ma'am, can you tell us more about the test on Wednesday?
Yes, can you be a little louder?
Yes, can you tell us about the test on Wednesday?
So it will be multiple choice questions. See, let's say 60 questions you'll have totally. That is, you'll have 1 minute to answer a question. So 4 questions will be given and 4 choices will be given. Out of the 4, you have to pick up the correct exact answer. Right? So let's say you go through all the topics we have discussed till now. Right? And tomorrow, let's say if I am able to complete the class, okay, in 1 hour, so the next another 30-35 minutes we can discuss about we can revise all the topics we have done. Okay, and if you have
Yes,
any
ma'am.
doubts, you can ask me. Tomorrow I'll try
Okay.
to complete the class within an hour. Right?
Okay, ma'am, that'll be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So I think Wednesday you will be having the exam from 7 to 8. So 6 to 7 we can have a doubt session. So in case you need any clarification before you take up the exam, 1 hour we can have a question and answer session, right?
Ma'am, so will there be, since it's a MCQ type of pattern, will there be questions like what tag do you use for paragraph? Questions like that, right?
Like no, because I haven't prepared the question paper, so I don't know exactly. Since I am taking the class, I am not allowed to prepare the question paper. Somebody else would have prepared. I don't know what they have done. So normally this multiple selection is not allowed, even though the option is available. In most of the websites, they'll allow you to enter only to select only a single file for upload. Okay, fine. Over. Then till now we have seen the submit button and the reset button. So normally we'll say input type is equal to submit, input type is equal to reset. The submit and the reset buttons have a special meaning to the browser. So the moment you say input type is equal to submit, let's say the browser will understand that the once the button is clicked, the form data entered must be submitted to the server. Similarly, when you say input type is equal to reset, right, it will automatically clear all the selections and then all the data you have entered in the form. Now, apart from these two, I can create a button to perform, let's say, other operations. Let's say when the user clicks on a button, you want to display a message, or let's say in a JavaScript code, when the user clicks on a button, so you want to display and you want to say whether all the form data has been filled up correctly or not. So for that we'll say input type is equal to button. So that means it is an ordinary button, it is not your submit button or a reset button. So a button which you can let's say an interactive button which lets you perform any operation, okay, other than submitting and resetting, right? Now when you click on the button, okay, I just want to display a message, okay, hi or hello or something. So I've written a small piece of JavaScript code, okay, the input type is button on click. That means when the button is clicked, it is going to call this JavaScript code where I'm going to simply display this message, hello world. Right now, when we'll be using these buttons normally is, now let's say you have a very big form and you have filled up a lot of details, and some of the fields in the form will be mandatory. Okay, and let's say you there's some check boxes and radio button, you have not made any selection. So before submitting, I can check whether everything is filled up properly. For that, when you say submit, immediately it will submit. So I can write a, well, let's say create a button called as validate. Then I can tell you, display a message, please select an option from the checkbox. You have not selected anything from the radio button. You have not made any selection from the drop down list. Like this, you can display some messages and you can guide the user to fill the form data completely and correctly, right? For that purpose, we can use this ordinary button. So this is the input type is equal to button, creates a simple push button. You can use it for to make some interactive, okay, make interactive operations with the user, right? So the JavaScript code should be written within the script tag. Okay, this is a small JavaScript function which displays a message. Just like you write the style sheet rules within the style tag, opening and the closing style tag, you need to write the JavaScript code within the script tag. Over. Okay. Now, in the field set example, we have seen how to create a field set and how to style it. Now, we look at the CSS grid. Okay, fine. Now, let's say, what do you mean by a CSS grid? Now, let's say when you want to design a web, let's say web form or a web page. So normally what you do, you create divs. Okay, you let's say set the width and the height for the different div. Then you place the div, each and every element, and then you give the float property, float left or float right, to make it, to position it exactly in a web page. Okay, now the problem with this approach is that in your divs may work correctly with one particular browser. Let's say in Chrome it might work perfectly, but the same page when you view it in a different browser like Safari or Internet Explorer or Opera, okay, so the alignment will not be proper. Okay, so it will totally break down the alignment. Now normally till now what we are doing is you create a HTML file, you save it and you open it in a browser. Now I have the latest version of Chrome in my computer. So all the CSS properties, everything you have given, Chrome provides, let's say, complete support to all the tags. Now, when the same user is viewing the web page in a lower version of Internet Explorer or lower version of Chrome, the web page appearance will not be proper. So the alignment, nothing will be properly aligned, and sometimes it will look very ugly. So when certain CSS properties, let's say float right or left, and you have to clear the float, clear the margin. Okay, they will some of the properties will not be supported by some of the browsers. Now, when I say a browser, the user you will have browsers in all operating systems and all devices. Even in your mobile, you have a browser. You will be able to view the website, right? You can, let's see, you can open Google in your mobile phone. You can open Rediff, or you can open cricket.com in your mobile phone. So, and then you can open it in your tab. So the user will be browsing from any device, any operating system, and let's say there are a lot of more than 30 browsers available in the market. Now, when a person designs a web page, let's say, and the designer has to check whether it has a uniform appearance across all the 30 browsers. Now, when you create and host a website for your company, let's say some people who are browsing your website from the Mac, from a Macintosh system, if they are not able to view let's say the website properly, then what will happen? You lose those customers, right? So in your mobile phone, in the Android operating system has got its own browser. Okay, now if something is not visible properly, what will happen is you will let's say lose those customers with that particular device and browser. So now what a web designer has to test the web page across all the browsers, and then only when it has an same appearance across all the browsers, you will be able to publish it in the internet. Otherwise, you will really run into a lot of trouble. Right now, when you use this float property, let's say, and then when you're clearing the float, some of the browsers, all the browsers will not handle the same property in the same way. And let's say some browsers might give an extra margin. Right, in that case, what will happen? What should fit in a single line will come to the next line. So in the first line, okay, if the alignment is gone, your entire web page, the alignment will go for a toss. So in order to avoid all these problems, HTML5 provides you something called as a grid layout to design and view your web pages and then your forms, right? So when you create a grid, so basically what you're doing with the grid is that you're dividing the entire space in the browser window into different rows and columns, and in each cell, you know about tables, right? You have a 3 by 3 table, so totally you will be having 9 cells. So similarly, I divided, let's say, using the grid, and each and every cell I can place the element I want. So, okay, now for example, I can place one section, I can divide it into 3 rows, 3 columns. In the first row, I can place, let's say, a particular section. In the second row, since there are 3 columns, in the 3 columns, in one column, I can put some text. In the other 2 columns, I can put some image. So it lets you design your web page and then your form, okay, in a hassle-free way. So the best part of using CSS grid is that in the future, okay, now a lot of people have not migrated from HTML4 to HTML5, but let's say maybe 2-3 years down the line, everybody will migrate to HTML5. So the World Wide Web Consortium has decided to provide complete support to the grid layout. So in the future, all the web pages will be designed using this grid. Okay, so you have to make yourself familiar with a grid layout, and it is very, very simple. Okay, Now, when you want to set the grid layout for a particular container or for a web page, let's say the first thing you need to do is display grid. Now, in this particular web page, I have, let's say, 9 div tags. So basically what I want to demonstrate how the grid layout works. So I have an outer div. I have set, let's say, the id to grid. So for the and this div container contains 9 other divs. I'm just displaying the numbers from 1 to 9, right? Also, once I set the layout as grid, when you keep adding different items, each and every item will all go and occupy, let's say, the first cell. And if the first cell is occupied, the next item will go and occupy the next cell, and so on. So like this, you will be able to fill up all the cells. Now you set it to display grid. Then you need to specify grid template, how many rows you want and how many columns you want. So grid template rows, this FR refers to fraction. Now what I want, you see, instead of that I can also say 100 pixels, 200 pixels, 300 pixels. I can say, so I can use any unit of measurements. But here what I want is, when I say FR, it is used only with a grid. That means for one fraction, that is, when I say 3 rows, divide all the entire space in the browser window into 3 equal rows. Similarly, when I say column, divide it into 3 equal columns, right? And then grid gap. So what should be the gap between the space between the different cells? So you can give it, you can use pixels or point, you can use any unit of measurement. Then here I've given the grid greater than div. That means, okay, hash grid. I have set this outer div, set the id as grid. So for all the descendant elements, that means for all the child elements of this div, where I set the id as grid, I'm setting the font size, padding, background color, gold. So this type will be applied to all the 9 divs. Now when I display the web page, okay, you just see these are the 9 divs I've given in the body section, right? Okay, so here let's say you see, when I say 1, so this setting, this style sheet settings are applied to this div, and when I say 1, it has gone and occupied the first cell. It is, you can think of as a table with 3 rows and 3 columns. So this, you can consider this as a cell, the first cell, 2, 3. So likewise, when you keep adding the different web page element, they'll go and occupy the first available space. Since I have 3 rows and 3 columns, I filled up all the rows and columns with this div, right? This is a very simple example to demonstrate how exactly the column grid works. Is it clear to everyone? Any doubts you people have? Anyone? Any doubts anybody is having, you tell me. Is it clear? Okay, write down. So here when I say hash grid, so this is the parent container where I have given the set the id to grid greater than div, that is all the child containers with a div element contained within this parent container. Clear? Right. over. Now here you see I've created a form. Okay, so I've set the top and bottom margin to 30 pixel, left and right margin to auto. So what it has done is it has centered the form, let's say horizontally, and at the top and the bottom there is a margin of 30 pixel, right? Okay, now I'm used the grid to design this form. Okay, so here basically in the form I have, let's say, these two text boxes and one text area. Text area. Okay, fine. So all the appearance and everything I'm controlling using this grid properties only. So I've written two classes, one for the body, that is a container, okay, and then the form I've written a class called as my form. Okay, so for the what I'm doing is for the container, right? I've given the width of 600 pixels and then the margin, and then for the form I've set it to the display as grid. Okay, and when you're giving the grid template columns, you have an option of specifying a name for the column. Okay, so here what I've given is auto and then one fraction. Well, so first one I've given the name as label for the first column. So you need to specify the column name as within this brackets. Okay, this braces. Now what exactly I want to do is, in the space, the container, it has 600 pixels. So I want to divide it into two columns. In the first columns, I want to position all the labels. In the second column, I want to keep all the controls. So for the first column, okay, I've given as auto and then controls one fraction. That means all the remaining spaces. Now auto flow row, that is when you keep adding the items, it will fill up the first row and then come to the next row and so on. Now here I am not setting the number of rows. So depending upon the items you keep adding, the rows will be automatically created. In the previous example, I fixed the rows as 3. Here I am not fixing the rows at all. Okay, then grid gap, okay, 0.8 em, that is the space between these two. Okay, fine. Then padding and then the background color light gray. And then what I'm doing is, okay, container and then form. So for all the labels, okay, I've given the grid column, okay, labels. That means all the label controls must occupy the column name with the name label. So grid column label. So all the labels must occupy the first column reserved for labels. Grid row auto, right? That is one by one, whichever row is free. Then For all the control, input control, text area button, grid column control. So that is the name I have given for the second column. So here I am specifying that any text input, text area button should occupy the second column, grid column controls, no border, padding one. Right? So now you see all the labels are positioned in the first column. All these controls are placed in the second column. Right? Right now. So for the form and the body, let's say I've given this container, right? So instead of container, you can also give an ID and make it a ID. Now the coding will be very much less in this type of design, because in the previous example when you use field set you need to use this div. For every div you need to set the class, but here there is no need to do. Just set the classes for the container and the form. There is no need to make any additional, write any additional code for the form elements, right? So using the CSS grid minimizes your code. So when you place the form elements using this grid, you see all your labels and everything. They are cleanly aligned within the grid rows and columns. So you don't have to waste a lot of time positioning the elements. Over. We'll go to the next example. Okay, so now here in this example, if you look at it, like I have made all the labels aligned to the water. right side. Okay, and I've created all these text boxes. Okay, and I've let's say okay, positioned everything. This also I've done using the grid, and I've given a background color. Right. So see, in the previous example, I've given the border as nothing, 0. So here, to make, let's say, the text field stand out, okay, when you click, whenever the text field is receiving the focus, I am displaying a golden colored border. Right, so you will know exactly the text box that is active currently. So this is a basic sign up form you would have observed in lot of websites, right? So here also you see in my in the code, I have not added any divs, everything in the form. I just have the label and the text box and the text box controls. Fine. So then what I've done is, instead of giving these classes and names, directly I'm specifying the the element itself here. So the form, I'm setting the display as grid, padding, background color, everything, and then a border. Okay, border, I've given the color. So you see you have a border for the form, right? And then margin, maximum width I've set to 600 pixels. Otherwise, what will happen is it will occupy the entire width of the browser window. So the appearance will not be neat. So always set the width for the container or for the form. And I've also set the font to the Google Open Sans. So this looks very neat and stylish. And for let's say the input controls, form input, I've given, let's say, this background, that is a white colored background. Okay, and then the border. And for the button, I've given it as light gray, right? And when you move the mouse over the button, I'm changing the color to golden color. You can give any color you like. And then width, I've given 100% so that it appears, I want the submit button to occupy the entire width of the second column, right? Okay, so display grid, right? Font family and button over the gold color. And for the label, I've given the padding. Okay, input, I've given input focus. I'm displaying a 3 pixel solid gold. That is for all the input elements. Whenever you keep the mouse pointer on the field, you'll get this golden color border to highlight the currently active form field. Okay, fine. Input focus and at media. So okay, so I'm setting the minimum width 400 pixels. That is why I'm setting the minimum width in case you view this in a mobile phone. So I'm setting it to 400. It will automatically shrink to 400 pixels since the screen size is smaller. Okay, and we give this at media to specify how the form should be displayed across different devices. Okay, and form, I've given template columns, that is 2 columns. First column is going to occupy 200 pixels, rest will be occupied, fraction will be occupied by the other control. Fine. Then grid gap I've set. So since it is set to, let's say, this automatically when I add a label, it's going to go and occupy the first row, and the other control when I add it is going to occupy the next row, and so on, next cell, and so on. Right. So let's say you can now when you look at the form and the body, I haven't added any CSS style, any div. So I mean, when you keep adding divs, it will be very difficult to understand. But here, by looking at the form, you can clearly understand how many text boxes, how many labels. Clear? So here what I've done is I've given a background color, and for all the input fields I've given a focus. I'm changing the background, and for the submit button I'm changing the background color on mouse over, and all the text boxes I've aligned to the, sorry, all the labels I've aligned to the right text alignment. Right? Right now. So maximum maximum width I've given 600 pixel, minimum width 400 pixel. So even let's say if you view it in a larger screen, it will not exceed 600 pixels. So here when you say grid column 1 by 2, that is out of the 2 columns in the grid, the label should always occupy the first column. So when you set the minimum with this art media, this will make it a responsive, okay, web page. When a responsive means it will have a uniform standard appearance across all types of devices. I'll show you when you minimize the browser window. See, as I increase it, see when I decrease or increase, appearance will be the same. You just see the second column in the grid will be adjusted. Clear? This is called as a responsive layout. So always it will be, the minimum width will be 400 and the second column, space in the second column will be adjusted accordingly. Let's scroll down. Over. Okay, I'll tell you what is the advantage of this design. Now you can use it not just for this form, you can use it for any form you like. You can just copy and paste this style tag, okay, with the CSS rules, and you can make it work for any form because you have defined the properties for let's say all the form elements, that is label, input control, button, okay. And instead of, like, if you want to use it for text area, just say input comma button comma text area, so it's going to work for text area also. So you can take this as a generic style sheet, and you can use it for any form you like, right? Okay, fine. So complete assignments, right? And if you have any doubts in okay, in your assignment, you can ask me tomorrow, right? Okay, fine. With this, we'll wind up today. Okay, the good night, and then you prepare well for the exam. We'll discuss the other things tomorrow.